Hello, thank you for tuning into the Natural Health Rising podcast. My name is Rachel Smith. I am a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, and I've helped hundreds of people naturally reverse symptoms of autoimmune diseases and other health challenges, from digestive issues to hormone imbalances. And in these weekly episodes, you're going to learn from myself and top health experts from around the world about functional medicine and holistic health tips to help you rise to your healthiest, happiest self. On today's episode, I have Alex King with me. Alex is a certified women's health nutritionist. She helps women deal with the side effects of birth control, sync their cycle with their menstrual cycle, and balance their hormones naturally. She's also the host of the Holistic Women's Health podcast, which covers everything from health, nutrition, fitness, personal growth, relationships, and more. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Thanks so much for having me, Rachel. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Can you start off by telling us about what happened to you when you were, I believe, 12 years old, and you were having some health challenges that wound up putting you down this path of taking birth control?
Yes, I was quite young, so it was somewhere around 12, 13. I had to have emergency surgery to remove a ruptured cyst that was twisting and torting my left ovary, and I was just in excruciating pain, getting really sick, and so went to Emerge and then got rushed into emergency surgery. And then right after that, my family doctor and surgeon said, let's put you on birth control. And they made it sound so easy. You'll just go on, it'll fix all your problems, no problem at all, and then just stay on it until you want to get pregnant. You'll come off, easy peasy, get pregnant, no problem, and then go back on until you reach menopause. And then at that point, you can come off and the birth control will be amazing for you. You'll have no more cysts. It'll help with your skin, everything. So to me, I thought, okay, this is great. This sounds like a miracle. Awesome. I never want to be in this much pain again. And then I went on probably about 5 different types of pills before I found one that was manageable. It was changing my moods. It was making me more anxious, more depressed, moody, you name it. And so then we switched. And then when I was in school for nutrition and holistic nutrition, I realized maybe I shouldn't be on the pill for more than a decade. And how is this impacting my hormones and fertility? And that was something my mom was really worried about. So the first time I came off, I ended up back in the hospital from extremely heavy bleeding and pain, and then went back on, did my research, took all the supplements, lifestyle changes, did castor oil packs, all sorts of things, and then came off, and that was back in 2018 and been off ever since.
Wow. I can relate to some of this. I was never on birth control for that long, but I did also have a ruptured cyst. That is one of the most painful things that you can experience. That was absolutely horrible. And then I remember trying a few different birth controls, and I gave up because after I think 2 or 3 tries, same thing as you, mood was crazy. I was having gallbladder attacks. I was having just a whole bunch of terrible symptoms, and I just said, this isn't for me. I'm not going to do it. So I never went fully down that path. But when you say that you got off and then you went back on and then you started researching, what was that aha moment of something you found where you said, oh no, this really isn't something that I want to stay on?
Yeah, it wasn't until I was fully in adulthood. And the first time I came off, I was in university studying dietetics and just so wrapped up in school and getting my science degree that I didn't really look into it. And then it wasn't until I went to holistic nutrition school where we actually started talking about it. And I remember sitting in one of the classes, I think it was nutrition over the lifespan, and we were covering teens and 20s and 30s and family planning and the birth control pill. What we were talking about that. And I also remember one of the slides talking about endometriosis. And I just remember sitting there thinking, wow, my symptoms match up so much with everything that we're talking about for the birth control pill and endometriosis and PCOS. And I was just relating so much to this. And so that was my big aha moment, just seeing that. And also I did read Dr. Jolene Brighton's book, Beyond the Pill, as I was preparing to come off. And that was a huge eye-opener for me as well. Just all the statistics in there, learning about how the pill works and how to prep yourself to come off the pill and all the side effects. It was just very eye-opening.
Yeah, that is such a good resource. I love all of her information. So I would love to get a little bit into that endometriosis in a little bit, but first tell us more about what's happening to a woman's body when she takes birth control.
Sorry, you cut out there. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. So what's happening to a woman's body when she actually takes birth control?
Yes, great question. So when you're taking birth control, you're supplying your body with these hormones. So then it cuts off that brain and ovarian connection of we need to make hormones, because you're supplying your body with the same dose of hormones every time you take that pill. And so your body's like, oh, okay, we don't need to make anymore because we're getting them. So it just totally shuts off that connection. It stops ovulation. And so these natural processes that our body normally does just totally gets shut off. And that's how it works for managing symptoms. A lot of women go on the pill for symptom management and also just to prevent pregnancy.
So if somebody is wanting to get off of birth control, what are they going to expect to happen to their body when they come off?
Could be good, could be not so good. One of the great things that I hear from my clients when they're coming off the pill is, wow, I feel like myself again. And they actually quite enjoy the different phases and seeing how they feel throughout the whole month or the whole cycle. So at this point in my cycle, I feel really outgoing. And at this point in my cycle, I'm learning to honor just staying in and drinking tea and watching a show and relaxing. And they actually feel like themselves again. They have their personality back, their moods back. So that would be a big positive. And then depending if you get a lot of androgen rebound as well. So typically at that 3-4 month mark coming off birth control, then some symptoms can start to come back. If you didn't replenish your nutrients or prepare your body to come off the pill, that's typically when a lot of people who come to me notice, oh wow, I have acne, my painful periods are back. Either I didn't get my period back and now I'm experiencing something called amenorrhea, which is no period, or I never stopped bleeding and now I have my period for 3 months. So it could be all sorts of things, the good, the bad, the ugly. Weight gain or weight loss as well is a big one, but acne is a big one I see in my practice in terms of not so great. And then mood in terms of feeling like themselves again is a big one that's great that I see in my practice.
So you mentioned they will more likely or possibly experience these things if they're not balancing nutrients and kind of working on things maybe before they're even getting off the pill or as they're getting off the pill. So what are some of those first steps that someone should take getting off of birth control so that they start working on having more balanced hormones?
I love this question. This is exactly what I teach all my clients as we're going through. And yeah, just for anyone listening, this is what ideally you would be doing. If you're not currently tracking, start there. So a lot of people actually aren't tracking their cycle. So an app I like is Clue, and that will just prompt you with any symptoms that you need to put in. So how did you sleep, how long your cycle is, how heavy your bleeding is. And then after that, number 2, the second step I like to do is recommend that you mentally prepare yourself and have that conversation with anyone that you need to have the conversation with, if it's a partner or a doctor. And number 3 would be to really support your gut. So everything is going through your gut as you're eliminating excess hormones. Make sure you're having 1 to 3 easy bowel movements every single day. If you have anything else going on, any type of IBS, that we would need to focus on as well. Remove any inflammatory foods, and then liver support, since everything goes through our liver. So any type of medication, supplements, emotions like anger, frustration, resentment, all of this is going through our liver. So we really need to support our liver to get rid of all these excess hormones. And then beyond that, other things we would focus on are sleep, stress. We focus on removing toxins from the home, from your environment, from your skincare, your body products, things like that. And then anything beyond that would be to just see what my client needs extra support with.
Okay, so many things that we need to do. So let's break down some of these parts. Mentally preparing self, that was something that caught my attention. And what is a conversation that someone would need to have with their partner around this?
Yes, so great. It's something that I find a lot of people just skip over, but then when we actually go back and think about it, it could be a big step, especially for me. Let's say I was on it for 11 years on the pill. And so it's a huge change now that's not going to be in my life anymore, and preparing myself for, okay, is my skin going to freak out? What are my periods going to be like? Are my heavy periods going to come back? Is the pain going to come back? That was really scary for me. And then having a conversation with your partner. So if you have a male partner specifically, then how do we not get pregnant? If you're not trying to get pregnant at the moment, what are we going to do? Are we going to try a new method of birth control, whether it's natural, or do we want to switch to a non-hormonal IUD? Are we tracking symptoms, looking at the calendar and our apps? What are we doing? Are we using condoms? So that's a big conversation if you're not looking to get pregnant. Even if you are looking to get pregnant, informing your partner as well that I'm coming off the pill. This is going to be a big change. I don't know how I'm going to feel, things like that. And the pill can actually change who you're attracted to. So when I was telling my partner that I was coming off the pill, he was like, what if you're not attracted to me anymore? And so just having a conversation like that, mentally preparing yourself, because it can be a big change. So just having support is also really important for a lot of my clients, because if, let's say, acne is a big concern of theirs, then I can help walk them through, this is what we're going to do step by step. We're going to do everything we can so the acne doesn't come back with a vengeance, or the periods come back with a vengeance, but I'm here for you. I have your back, and I'll be your cheerleader. So journaling can really help, meditation can really help, and just mentally preparing for that big quit day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to have that conversation, and also educate your partner about when you can get pregnant, actually, once your cycle regulates, which is that, what is it, like the 5 days before ovulation and a day after ovulation. And have you ever seen the Netflix show Love is Blind?
Yes.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Good. Have you seen the newer season where the conversation about, thank God. Okay. I'm sitting there watching this show. I'm not a big TV person, but I do love the show. And I'm sitting there in this scene where Johnny and his his fiance are having this big stress over how she doesn't take birth control. And neither of them once mentioned this fact that I just brought up. And he's sitting there saying, well, you need to get on birth control. And she's like, well, you need to get a vasectomy. And it was such this big stress that came into the relationship where they actually thought about not getting married. And if they had just had this education of, hey, did you know that you can only get, since she wasn't taking birth control, she probably had a pretty normal cycle. Educating them and saying, hey, you can only get pregnant these 7 days during the month, use condoms and do these other methods, and educating them, it would have totally taken all the fights and stress out of the show and out of their relationship. And so I would just love to hear if you have anything else to say on that topic, because it seems to be very, unknown, or a misconception for many people.
I think about that all the time. And not just that couple specifically, but just the lack of education in general. Yeah, especially, you know, everything going on in the States. And I always just think about how there's so many options that people don't know about. One, and well, I would say most importantly, we're just so not educated about the female body and when we can actually get pregnant. And I was just talking to my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, and they're at a point now in their marriage where they're looking to have kids. And she was like, you know, it's actually not so easy to get pregnant. And she's tracking her cycle and taking prenatals and getting all the blood work done. And she was like, they make it sound like it just happens that you can get pregnant so easily, but it's actually just that 24 hours that you ovulate. It's that one day in your whole cycle that you do ovulate. And like you said, that 5 days before, because your body can hold on to sperm for 5 days. And then those 2 days after, just as a cushion, because you won't ovulate exactly the same day and time every single month. So we say just that cushion of the 2 days after confirmed ovulation. But yeah, just the education is so important, and it's so lacking. And I do remember watching the show, sitting there being like, there's so many other options, because they were abstaining from sex while they were engaged, because they were like, we don't know what to do. And yeah, she was like, you could get a vasectomy. And he was like, what do we do? And it's like, one, people always forget condoms exist. And then two, they, you know, go out and get that education and see when you can actually get pregnant and how to avoid getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh gosh. So I think, you know, I have another episode, because I'd love to get into some other topics today. I do have some other episodes on the show people can go back and listen to. I think it's episode 73, where we talk a little bit more about cycle syncing and birth control and stuff. And then episode 54 should also have some information. So if people are like, oh, I want to know some more about that. And then also, Alex, I know you help people with this stuff and getting off of birth control and all of that. So they can also reach out to you, of course. But one thing that I did notice you are really great at is learning what skincare products are great for people who have hormonal acne. So I would love to hear if you have like a few things. I know there's thousands of products and hundreds that you recommend, but what's like your top face wash, makeup brand, like a couple things that women are putting on their faces on a daily basis if they have hormonal acne?
Yes. So this is the one thing in my whole routine that's not non-toxic. This is the one thing that I just don't compromise on. So as a preface, because a lot of the natural non-toxic skincare products do contain pore clogging ingredients. So that's one thing I always like to say. And it's just one thing that if you lean more on the non-toxic natural side, that it's not 100% non-toxic, a lot of the products, but they are totally acne safe, non-comedogenic, don't contain pore cloggers, and things like that, because a lot of oils like shea butter, coconut oil, any type of essential oil is not great for skin and acne. So it's just like a little bit of a caveat that we want to be as natural as possible, and every other area of our life, this is the one my one area where I'm not. So okay. Face wash I personally use, and I just restocked, so now I have about 3 bottles, is the Vanny Cream Cleanser. It's just super gentle, really short list of ingredients. So that one I like. I've switched between the one in the pump or the bar. They're both great. They don't irritate my skin at all, especially someone who's been suffering from acne and breakouts for the last 12 plus years, and now my skin's finally at a good spot. So I found what works, and I'm sticking to it, and I love it. So that one, and then I love a hyaluronic acid, and that one, again, pretty short list of ingredients as well. I put it on damp skin. It helps with plumping, hydration, and then moisturizer is one of the hardest areas I found to find an acne safe moisturizer. There are a couple that I can't think of off the top of my head. There is one from And I can't even think of the brand now, but they specialize in totally acne safe products and mostly non-toxic.
Maybe you send it to us and we'll throw the link in the show notes after.
Perfect.
That way.
And
also, you're in Canada, so I'm wondering if we do have Canadian listeners. We also have a lot in the U.S., so I'm wondering if there's if we can get them here too. So they might be a little bit different.
Yes, I do have an ebook full of the products, and I did a lot of research on Ulta, Target, and then also here in Canada we have Shoppers. So it is mostly US products and Canadian products, and if anyone listening from the UK, I don't know how accessible it'll be or anywhere else in the world, but they're mostly American, Canadian type of products.
Okay, awesome. And another thing people can do is look for those ingredients that you listed that are acne causing too, maybe if they are in a different place. So like you said, shea butter, coconut oil, essential oils as well. I'm a little bit surprised on that one. That makes me sad.
Yes, they can be irritating. There's a couple websites that I use and love to look up products. So yeah, like you said, if they're anywhere else in the world and you want to look up specific products, Cosmely is a great one, and I can send you all the links as well so you can put them in the show notes. There's Acne Clinic NYC. That one I also check for any of the products. And then Skin Sort is another one that I look through as well to make sure it's all acne safe, fungal acne safe, non-comedogenic, no pore cloggers, things like that.
Okay, amazing. So let's get into endometriosis more specifically. Give us a little bit background on what endometriosis is and what are the symptoms that typically show up with this?
Yes, great question. So endometriosis, there's two kind of quite similar conditions. There's endometriosis and adenomyosis. Basically, endo is where the tissue grows outside of the uterus, so it can grow anywhere up through your lungs, your heart, your brain, most commonly all around your bowel. And then adenomyosis is where the tissue is growing into the uterine wall, and a lot of the symptoms are very, very similar between the two, but it's quite a common condition like PCOS. So about 1 in 9 women have endometriosis, and it's so underdiagnosed. It takes about 12 to 15 years to get a diagnosis of endometriosis. So we're a little bit behind, especially considering 1 in 9 people who have a uterus have endometriosis. So the symptoms can be very debilitating, pain being the number one symptom. Any type of pain with sex, low back pain, hip pain, pain that shoots all the way down your thighs, pain while you're on your period, pain at any other point in your cycle. It doesn't have to be just while you're bleeding. Any type of nausea, vomiting, really heavy periods with clotting, low libido, and then infertility is a big one that leads to that diagnosis of endometriosis. But those would be the main symptoms of endo.
Are there any misconceptions about endometriosis that you hear?
Ooh, did you have any in mind?
Well, I do think and have seen that it can be controlled and like you can stop the growth naturally, whereas I've had a lot of people come to me saying, oh, you know, my doctor said that I have to just keep getting ablations and I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. So I'd love to hear if you have heard anything like that.
Yes. Estrogen is a big cause of why the tissue grows. So that's why people on the pill, or if you're doing something to lower your estrogen, that is a big reason, especially also inflammation, why the tissue keeps growing. So you can get the ablation, you can get the surgery, remove the tissue, but then it'll continue to grow if your estrogen is just out of control and really high. So you can slow that tissue growth, manage a lot of those symptoms if you are focusing on hormones. And then also there's new research, thankfully, coming out with endometriosis. So most recently, they found that 65% of women with endometriosis had a bacteria. They did some vaginal swabs and they all had this particular bacteria. So, but then what about the other women who didn't have that strain of bacteria, who do have a confirmed endometriosis? So for some people, the root cause is different, and then how we manage and treat that root cause then can control that tissue growth.
Yeah, and another thing that I like to look at, if somebody maybe doesn't have that diagnosis specifically, but they are having similar symptoms, and we want to see what's going on with their hormones. And I believe you use Dutch testing as well, right? Yeah, so looking at the Dutch test. And what I really like about the Dutch test is, instead of just seeing the estrogen as if you were to do a blood test, is seeing the metabolites and how the estrogens are breaking down. And so we do know that if the 16-hydroxy metabolite is out of control and is high, this is a trigger for tumor growth, cell proliferation. So this is associated with that abnormal tissue growth, endometriosis, ovarian cysts, fibroids, all of that. So I find that to be a really vital test for people who are struggling with these symptoms. And I would love to hear if you have other tests or specific things you're looking at for people as well.
I love the Dutch test so much because, on blood work, they'll only test one type of estrogen, but there are three sisters. So we want to see the three different types of estrogen. And like you mentioned, all the three pathways, the red, the blue, the green, and see how they're being detoxed out and how you're metabolizing them. And so I do really like Dutch. And then for some of my clients, I like the GI map test as well, because there are other things that can lead to more gut issues, and then gut and hormones go hand in hand as well. So we can see if there's candida playing a role, or H. pylori, or any type of parasites, bacteria, good bugs, bad gut bugs. So those are my two tests that I run all the time, on top of your routine blood work and testing other things through blood work that aren't on the Dutch, like LH, FSH, thyroid hormones, if they're looking to get pregnant, AMH, things like that.
What are some things you've seen on the GI map test that are more common with people with endometriosis?
That is a great question. For gut stuff, it'll vary depending on what's going on. Typically, a lot of my endo clients who experience gut stuff, it's because of the endo tissue is connected to the bowel, so it's pulling on it, and every time they experience any type of that pain, contracting, it'll pull on the bowel as well. It can cause blockages. So higher, if they're more constipated from that endometrial tissue, then we'll see more bad gut bugs just festering, growing, which then can lead to candida, possibly SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, things like that. I would have to look back on all my clients with endometriosis who ran the GI map to see if there are any specific correlations, but that would be super interesting to actually look at in more detail.
How can you get somebody passing stool easier with some simple things? Because you mentioned, supporting the gut, and you said 1 to 3 easy bowel movements every day, but a lot of people don't have 1 to 3 easy bowel movements.
Yes, for some people it's not so easy. There's a lot of straining involved. So hydration, first and foremost, making sure you're actually drinking enough water. We can add electrolytes as well to making sure you're extra hydrated, and then eating lots of fiber. So if you're really low in veggies, you're just not getting enough fruit, veggies, fiber, something like that. And then we can add in extra fiber like flaxseed in a smoothie, chia seed puddings, things like that. And then any type of food intolerances, or sensitivities is a big one as well. So removing anything that's causing extra inflammation. So specifically with gluten and endometriosis, there's a 75% reduction in symptoms if you do go gluten-free and you have endo. So that was a big one for me. Like, maybe I should go a little bit more gluten-free. And since then, I have also noticed a big reduction in pain. So for anyone who's maybe been dabbling and has endometriosis, that 75% is a pretty large number for pain reduction. And then movement is a big one as well for just getting those bowels moving. Any type of walking, stretching, whatever you can manage, any type of exercise will help with that bowel movement as well. Those are probably some of my big, easy, mostly free tips, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. What about other natural remedies and steps for people who want to alleviate period pain and symptoms of endometriosis? So you just mentioned gluten, and that sounds like a pretty big shift for a lot of people that they can make.
Yes. Yeah. And you can always start slow too. So if any type of podcast you're listening to, if this one, you're like, there's so many things I want to implement, just pick one, start slow, what works with your lifestyle, things like that. So for gluten, you can start slow, just buying some gluten-free stuff or cutting out, let's say, the garlic bread with your pasta. Just, you can start really, really slow. Now, luckily, there's a lot of really easy, delicious gluten-free options. So just start dabbling, get curious. Other things supplement-wise we can dive more deeper into as well. I love omega-3, turmeric, ginger for some anti-inflammatory endometriosis. And then I love castor oil packs. That's a big one as well, just for liver support, helping lower that tissue growth. That's lymphatic drainage. So I do love some castor oil packs, sauna, anytime you can sweat as well. That's going to be really helpful just to support your liver, get out excess hormones. And then the mental aspect is going to be a big one too. And of course, that's going to be dependent on where you're at, but any type of mental blocks, I mentioned a little bit earlier, anger, frustration, resentment, that's all going to get harbored in your liver. So focusing on, if there's someone you need to forgive, there's a meditation called Ho'oponopono that I love. If you're dealing with anger or frustration, then having a healthy outlet to deal with that, whether it's therapy, journaling, meditation. So that can be some other areas as well.
Castor oil packs are incredible. Use those with all my clients. We'll put some links to this stuff in the show notes for you guys to access. Also love the supplements, curcumin, omegas, such good anti-inflammatory parts. What about anything else that would alter estrogen? And this is not medical advice, guys. Anybody listening, this is not like go out and take any of these supplements, but just curious if there's some common things for endometriosis beyond like the inflammatory aspect, if there's nutrients, if there's something for the estrogen levels, anything like that.
Yes. And like you said, I'm not your nutritionist, so I can give you the tools and stuff, but just beware, especially with anything that's going to alter your hormones. Just a little extra beware, because what if it's not estrogen that's your problem, and I recommend something to lower estrogen, everything's just going to get worse. But if it is estrogen, specifically Chase Tree or Vitex, you can go by both names, that will help support the whole cycle, your hormones. And then there's a supplement called DIM, D-I-M as well. That's really great at lowering estrogen if that is a concern of yours. Otherwise, if it is high testosterone, I like saw palmetto for liver support. I love milk thistle and dandelion and nettle. And those, if you want just a gentle, you can start drinking some tea as well. So that would be a low and slow option. Spearmint is a great tea if you are higher in those androgens, but also, like we mentioned earlier, you can run a Dutch test and actually see what's going on with your hormones and what you need. And then other things specifically for endo, anything citrus wise is going to be great. So you can get that through food or through a vitamin C supplement. And then I also love bromelain from pineapple, can help with the pain. And then for homeopathic remedies, I love arnica. They're just these really, really teeny tiny bottles with these little pellets, and they're about $8 a bottle, and you just twist them off into the cap directly under your tongue to melt. So arnica is a great one that I like for pain. Especially if you're recovering from any type of surgery post-endo as well. And then there's enzymes that I like for endo and decreasing that tissue as well. So if you take them in between your meals, that can really help with that, the tissue growth specifically for endo.
You also mentioned the emotional part, which a lot of people probably don't think of that as a first thing when they're thinking about their hormones. So the frustration, the resentment, the anger. Do you want to take us through the Ho'oponopono?
So that's one that I recommend my clients go to YouTube, and there's going to be hundreds of videos where if you like the person's voice, and sometimes they'll put music in the background. So listen to a couple and see which one is your favorite. But I use it as a meditation, so you can listen to it before bed, or a walking meditation, or in the morning while you're getting ready and showering for the day, and you can just put that on. Also, one of my clients, who I'm just so proud of her, she could only eat 3 foods. It was broccoli, beef, and cucumbers were the only foods that did not bother her. And as we got to talking more, we did everything. We put her on the elemental diet, which is even more strict than the elimination diet. So elemental is just this powder that you drink, and just to get her some nutrients in her body. And her stomach was so sensitive. And as we got to talking more, we realized when this happened was when she had a traumatic experience. She was in a car accident, and the woman behind her who hit her car, it gave her whiplash, and then she had digestive issues ever since. And she was always mad at this other woman who hit her because the other woman was younger and was texting and distracted while driving. And so we started talking about it more, and I said, why don't you write a letter? You don't need to send it to this person, but just for you, you can write the letter, then you can rip it up or burn it or do whatever you want with it. You can throw it out, but write a letter expressing how you're feeling and everything that's just been pent up, everything that's constantly running through your mind of that instance when you experience that trauma. And so it took her a couple months, and she finally came around and she wrote the letter. And in the letter, she got out all her feelings, wrote out everything. And then at the end of the letter, she said, I forgive you. So she was forgiving the person who hit her. And I think she might have even messaged the woman who had hit her and just said, I forgive you, and it was an accident. Things happen. And then ever since then, her gut issue was just totally gone. After years of only being able to eat 3 foods, just gone. She's like, I can eat foods again and they don't bother me. So I think sometimes we forget how powerful journaling and our emotions can be when it comes to things like this. So something like that can really help if you, need to forgive someone, or do you have a lot of feelings inside?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I actually really love Ho'oponopono, and it was introduced to me a long time ago when I was a bartender, when I was still going in through school, and I had a regular who would come in and get dinner and wine at my bar, and he's like, I feel like I need to tell you about this. And he's like, Ho'oponopono, and he explains the whole thing to me. I'm like, well, that's cool. And so I'll give more context. Ho'oponopono is from the Hawaiian tradition, and it's kind of like a prayer, or I'm probably not the best at explaining it, but the statement is something like, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And so I started using it in various ways. One, I would use it for myself just repeating that to myself, as you're saying. And then also what I would do is I would flip it towards other people, and I would use it in my head. If I was ever feeling like anxious towards someone, or anger, irritation, sometimes I would even just shorthand it like, I'm sending love to this person. I love you. I love you. And it would change the energy in the conversation. It would change the energy in the relationship and the way I was feeling towards that person. And it felt so good. And kind of a crazy story like yours with your client as well. I had a client years ago who had actually gotten her face, this is very graphic, but her face got ripped off essentially. And she got a massive infection in her face. Yeah, this is an intense story, guys. She had a massive infection in her face. The doctors had missed it multiple times. Her face wound up getting deformed essentially, and because of the bacteria started eating her face, and she had to get lots of surgeries. It was a really, really horrible story. And when we were working together, in the beginning, she couldn't look in the mirror. Like, she was like, I can't face myself where I'm at right now. And we implemented the Ho'oponopono for her, saying it to herself first, and then eventually saying it in the mirror, and going slow with that process, because that was really, really hard for her. And it changed her life. Like, this small practice, she was able to start to regain her confidence and like forgive herself and love herself. So I just love that it's had transformational purposes in like both of our lives as well as our clients' lives. And so you guys can go look that up, or go onto YouTube and learn about it. And it can be a super, super simple practice for you to implement and let go of some things.
That's so crazy, because I've never shared about that on a podcast episode, my own or as a guest before. So for whatever reason, I just shared it. And that's so powerful that you also have an experience with that in your client as well, and just how powerful that can be.
Yeah, I've never talked about it either. So cool. We get a new tip to the listeners, and I'm sure it will help somebody out there. So, any other final big things as we're coming to closer to the end of the podcast about endometriosis that you really want to share with people?
Ooh, I mean, just as you were telling that story about your client as well, that you are not your diagnosis. And something I learned when I was going through dietetic school is not to refer to a patient or client as a diabetic. You say it's a person who has diabetes. So, it's a person who is at the moment experiencing endometriosis, and not identifying with your disease wholeheartedly, because it can get better in a lot of cases. And even if, symptoms wise, or your client who had the bacteria on her skin, even we can do things mentally as well, just to shift that. And you're still a person with an amazing personality, and things, your diagnosis doesn't have to define you. And so I would say that as just wrapping up the conversation that we're having at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Many people, I think it's easy to not catch yourself in that. Like, we get told we have something, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's, endometriosis, whatever it is. And then so we just start saying it like, oh yeah, I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have this is my disease, and really claiming it. And so people can start, just listen to yourself one day and try and observe, how are you speaking about these labels that we get put on ourselves, and see if you can start to shift that story of what's going on in your body, and not really claiming that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
We do have some time to talk about cycle syncing. And so when it comes to cycle syncing, again, we've talked a little bit about this in some past episodes, 54 and 73, but I'm curious if, when working with people, if there are like two top things that are mistakes that you see women making, where they're actually going against their cycle instead of with their cycle to support their hormones.
A big thing is cold and hot food and when to eat cold food versus hot food. So that's a big, easy one. That's basically where I got started as well. And it's a mistake before cycle syncing or as people are learning cycle syncing, that when you're bleeding or about to bleed that week before, start transitioning into warmer, more grounding foods, soups, stews, even if it's hot and like you said in Arizona about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It might be hard to eat some soup, but your body does want more of those warming habits, food. So instead of a really cold smoothie or an iced coffee, you can switch to, let's say, a hot coffee or something, a warmer breakfast with protein, things like that. So, and then when you're in the middle of your cycle around ovulation, all the cold foods, the more the merrier. So smoothies, ice drinks, things like that, salads, cold, raw, refreshing foods. Your body can easily handle that compared to when you're bleeding and you're more in that warm phase, and wearing socks when you're bleeding as well. Cold feet, cold womb. So socks on your feet when you're bleeding, just to warm your womb. And you can sip warming herbs as well. So any ginger, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, things like that.
Okay. I love cold feet, cold womb. I've never heard that before. So we're trying to mimic the temperatures of the body of what they want to be in and what they should be in. So we always want to be in warmer things, in the more like the luteal moving into menstruation phases, and then kind of like second half of follicular ovulation, we want the colder stuff. Correct. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. This is so good. Would you even think about that? We could even say like cold plunges versus saunas and stuff. This is a huge thing right now where we say, oh, biohacking, you need to take cold showers, you need to do ice baths, but so many people forget that women, we don't operate on a 24-hour cycle like a man. So that was another one that just came to my head of, if you are somebody who's into those things, shifting those and taking warmer baths or warmer showers and saunas during those times, versus if you do want to do a cold plunge or a cold shower, having that also during your ovulation phase too. I love that.
Yes. Yeah, you bring up such a good point. And if you want to do the combination, because typically if there's a sauna, you'll also do contrast shower as well. Mm-hmm. Your body can handle that way more easily during that ovulation time. So if you wanted to do that combo of the hot sauna with the cold shower or the cold plunge, do that more around ovulation. Avoid that when you're bleeding, if you can, of course, because, with lifestyle, if a friend invites you out to do this and you're feeling up for it, then, to each their own. But yeah, when I'm bleeding, just give me a hot bath with Epsom salt, teas. I just want to chill under a blanket with my heating pad. And then, during ovulation, you're a bit more resilient. So you can do more of that intense. I would consider sauna and cold plunges more of an intensity. So anything that requires more of that intenseness or HIIT workouts, anything like that during ovulation, you're going to be way more equipped to handle it than at other points in your cycle.
Mm-hmm. Are you open to doing a 5-question speed round for the end?
Yes, that sounds great.
Okay. First question. If you could give advice to yourself 10 years ago, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. A big lesson that I've learned more recently is just to let things roll off of me more easily and not stress so much. So 10 years ago, I would have been 19, just in the height of trying new things and going to a new school and drinking, where the drinking age in Canada is 19. So all the things like that, it's just a lot of new. It was very stressful. So I would just tell myself to take a deep breath and everything's going to be fine. Just calm down. Don't stress so much and cause yourself that much anxiety.
Mm-hmm. What's one supplement that you could not live without?
Ooh. That's so hard because it changes so much. I would say my electrolytes. Probably for the last few years, I haven't been able, I put them in my water every day. So I'm going to go with electrolytes.
Yeah, that's a top one for me too. What is your favorite thing to do for stress reduction?
A lot of, I would say, mental work. I always think of, I mean, of course you could do exercise or things like that, but I like to kind of take myself outside of my body and think about what would my higher self do in this moment if I, made a mistake or something like that. I always think, is this my child self reacting and wanting to cry and be small? What would my higher self do? And I always picture her kind of like floating above me, and what decisions would she make when I'm really, really stressed? And then, yeah, I try and reframe everything. So for me, what I always do first is mental. If I'm very stressed and I can feel my body shaking, then I'll just shake it out. I'll shake out my hands, I'll jump around, shake out my body and my toes and my legs. And then anything beyond that will take a little bit more time, like exercise, journaling, meditation, I'll do afterwards. But that's going to take at least half an hour.
Yeah. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
That's so difficult. Let's say, why can't I think of the word right now? Transportation, like being able to snap my fingers and just transport.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's mine too. I'm like, I want to just travel anywhere I can go.
Yes.
Okay, final question. If you could leave the listeners with one tip that they can implement this week that's going to help them live a healthier, happier life, what would that be?
I'm going to say go listen to Ho'oponopono, since that's what we talked about. There's so many things you could do, but let's start with that one.
Okay, I agree with that. Alex, this has been incredible. This is so many amazing tips in this episode, and I'd love for you also to just share anything we might have missed and where people can reach out to you and find you.
Yeah, this was so great. Thanks so much for having me on, Rachel, and doing everything that you do with the podcast. And if people want to reach out, I'm at Nutrition Moderation across all platforms, nutritionmoderation.com. And then the podcast is Holistic Women's Health. And yeah, you can reach out on Instagram, email, listen to the podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video and comment, letting me know what you enjoyed and what you want to see more of. Also, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you get alerts when new content is coming out and you don't miss any videos. And just a quick reminder that this information is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness or medical condition. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, supplements, or medical treatment. If you're looking for a functional medicine practitioner, please reach out to me. And thank you again for watching, and keep striving to become your healthiest, happiest self.